I'm the librarian and archivist at Ibstock Place School, and I'm just going to be doing a brief presentation looking at the question, can I use Wikipedia for research? So let's start with, what is Wikipedia? Well, I'm sure most of you are familiar with Wikipedia, but it's one of the largest reference sites on the web. It's a free online encyclopedia, and they have 5 pillars by which they operate. These, of course, being that it is an encyclopedia. It's written from a neutral point of view. It has free content that anyone can use, edit, and distribute. Its editors should treat each other with respect and civility. And finally, that it has no firm rules. So moving on, when is it acceptable to use Wikipedia? Well, there are 2 instances in which I will suggest it is acceptable to use Wikipedia. The first being when you want a brief overview of something that you have no knowledge of before doing some proper research. And secondly, when you wish to consult the bibliography at the bottom of the Wikipedia page. So let me just give you some examples of those. So starting with the first point, when you want a brief overview before doing proper research. So, let's say that I was reading a book for some research, and as I was reading and doing my research, I came across the term the Protestant Reformation. And the book that I'm reading didn't really elucidate on this, and I don't have any idea what the Protestant Reformation is. So of course I go over to Google, I type in Protestant Reformation, and it brings up this Wikipedia page on the Protestant Reformation. Now I think it's perfectly acceptable to peruse through this article just to get a general idea of what this particular topic is talking about, so that I can then situate what I was reading and have a general understanding of what that is. And then, of course, I would move on from here and find some more verifiable and trustworthy sources to do further research on the Protestant Reformation. And this can be really useful because it provides me with an array of keywords that I might use to then do some further research. So just reading through the first couple of sentences, I see that it was a schism in Western Christianity, initiated by Martin Luther, continued by John Calvin and Zwingli, other Protestant reformers in 16th century Europe. So I already, just from that first sentence, have a general idea of what it was, when it took place, and then I can move on from here to do some further research using those keywords to find some resources which are more trustworthy and verifiable than this Wikipedia page. Now, the second instance in which it's okay to use Wikipedia is when you wish to consult the bibliography at the bottom of the Wikipedia article or the Wikipedia page. So going back to the Protestant Reformation again, if I had scrolled down to the very bottom of that Wikipedia page, I would have seen this list of resources here, which gives me the sources that were used by the contributors to create this particular article. And I think it's perfectly acceptable to use this as a first port of call to find other books, magazines, journal articles, and websites that you might consult to do some further research. Now, I should add a caveat that you won't find that all of the resources used to create Wikipedia articles are in and of themselves trustworthy and credible. So you still want to employ the normal tools of analysis. When looking at these resources at the bottom of the Wikipedia page, you still want to check who the author is, make sure that they are qualified to be talking about this particular subject. You still want to look at the organization and the publisher. You still want to treat this with a little bit of skepticism to ensure, especially if it's a website, to ensure that the particular resource that's given is a credible one for you to do further research. So just in review, the 2 instances in which it is okay to use Wikipedia are firstly if you have no idea about a subject and you just want a quick overview so that you can get some keywords and just have a general idea to then move on to find some trustworthy and credible resources to do your research. And secondly, if you just want to scroll down to the very bottom of the page and find some references that you might use to do some further research. Now, when is it unacceptable to use Wikipedia? Well, it should not be used as a direct reference in any of your work, and there are 2 reasons for this. Firstly, because there are factual errors. So Wikipedia is known for displaying some ridiculous errors. You can see an example at the bottom here of Benedict Cumberbatch, who on Wikipedia, it was once claimed that he was an English actor who is half human and half otter. It's quite silly, and to be fair, this was corrected quite quickly, and when you do encounter errors on Wikipedia pages, because of the collaborative editing, it is likely that the errors will be corrected in good time. But this is still problematic because you as the researcher, when you're looking at the Wikipedia article, you don't know if the article you're looking at is the one with errors or the one that has been corrected. Now, secondly, an even bigger problem I would suggest with Wikipedia is the problem of authorship. So even if the Wikipedia article you are looking at is superb and high caliber and is written completely accurately with great resources, the problem is you still don't know who the author of that particular page is. The nature of Wikipedia allows anyone to edit the pages, and it even advises contributors not to worry about perfection. So I've included a little paragraph below here on this slide where you can see some advice that Wikipedia has given to new contributors. And they say perfection is not required, Wikipedia is a work in progress, collaborative editing means that incomplete or poorly written first drafts can evolve over time into excellent articles. The problem with this is, as a researcher, as I was saying, you don't know if the particular article you are looking at is the poorly written first draft, or if this is a draft that has undergone all of the edits necessary to ensure it's a high caliber piece of work. And of course, you don't know who the author is and who's actually contributed to it. Now, why is knowing who the author is important? Well, there are two reasons for this. Firstly, because of reliability. If you know who the author is, you can determine whether or not they are qualified to be contributing to this Wikipedia page on this particular subject. Secondly, it's important because of bias. Now, whenever somebody is writing a piece of work, it is understood that there will be some kind of implicit bias in what they are writing. And that's okay as long as we understand what that bias is, as long as we understand what perspective they're coming from. So we want to determine what is the purpose of their writing and who is the intended audience of this particular piece of work. And from understanding who the author is, we can determine this bias and then figure out what perspective they're coming from when they've created this piece of work, which gives us a little bit more understanding of the trustworthiness and credibility of the particular resource, and therefore whether or not it might be useful for our research. So as an example, I just have two articles here, one on Wikipedia about William Wordsworth, right here, and then one from the Victorian Web on William Wordsworth. Now, I would suggest that the second one on Victorian Web, even though it's not quite as pretty as the Wikipedia one, I would suggest that this one is actually a more trustworthy article. Now, the reason for this is if you see at the top of the page, under the title, you can find out who the author is. It's authored by Glenn Everett, the Associate Professor of English at the University of Tennessee, and of course, we would hope that the Associate Professor of English at this university, these credentials would give him some qualifications to be talking on this topic. And of course, I can also do further searches to determine whether or not Glenn Everett was, in fact, an Associate Professor of English at this university. I can see whether he's written anything else or published anything else online or via journal or book on this topic, which gives a little bit more credibility and therefore trustworthiness to this particular resource. Whereas Wikipedia, on the other hand, I can view the history at the top of the page in that top menu on the right-hand side where it says View History. And if I click that, it will give me a list of the usernames of people who have recently contributed to this page. But the problem is that the usernames don't tell me whether or not these people are qualified to be actually writing about William Wordsworth. So, in sum, only use Wikipedia as your first port of call to give you some ideas for your research and for references. You want to use it as a springboard into further research, not as a reference in and of itself. Do not use Wikipedia as a reference because it cannot be considered trustworthy and credible just due to the issues that I have highlighted here. So that is all I have for today, just looking at whether or not it's okay to use Wikipedia for research. If you have any questions or comments, please do feel free to contact me. Thank you.